I don't believe.
I consider myself to be agnostic.
Most times I'm a
How amazing we are, living side by side with different cultures, different habits, different tongues, and most importantly, different beliefs. The following pie chart gives approximate estimates of religious adherence as a percentage of the world population in 2000. As we can see, many of us are members of a particular religious group. Others are unsure of what they should believe. Others do not have any religious beliefs, or perhaps they don't have enough time to think of what may confuse them or may hold them back from approaching their own desires or aims. Whoever you are, for sure, there is a moment of truth in your life. You must have asked yourself, why are we here? What happens when I die? How shall I live my life? Is there a God? And if so, can I get to know him better throughout my life? What is he like? Or maybe there is no God. Maybe these are just speculations of an entity not experienced or seen. Should we build our faith on wishful thinking? On an assumption that cannot be tested? The answers to these questions, which all humans seem to be programmed to ask, deserve a bit of consideration and work.
Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, atheism, so many groups. Rather than focusing on the technical beliefs and specifications of each traditional religion, we will focus on one main concept, the belief or disbelief in God. Not everyone was convinced with the question of belief. In fact, some even criticized it.
God's just kind of a hard word to define. Because everyone has a different opinion of it. To say yes or no answer whether I believe in God, it depends how you define it. So, if you're talking from your perspective and you define God differently, maybe I don't believe in God, and you're like, do you know what I mean? Like in your, perception of things.
In order to stand on a common ground, we have to agree on what the word God implies.
Every single thing in our ordinary life, whatever we have confidence in, it can be shown at some point to break down. So I can have complete trust that the sun will rise tomorrow. But in fact, this small planet can be blown to bits by a meteor or something tonight. In fact, I may die tonight, and then the sun will not rise for me tomorrow. So, like this, whatever it is we put our strongest confidence in our ordinary life, it can happen that I'm walking somewhere and I step and it's quicksand and I sink, So then, the question is, and this is what human beings ask, what is that in which I can have complete and utter confidence, which under no circumstances will betray my trust, will let me down? And so human beings, I think, give the name God to that.
In order to put all my trust in him, he has to be the one and only, who's omnipresent, omnipotent, compassionate and merciful. He has to be kind, loving, wise and all-knowing. He has to be the creator, the sustainer, the healer. He has to be the one who guides, the one who protects, the one who judges and forgives.
Let's see if these attributes match what's found in various religions.
If we're talking about the monotheistic religions of Judaism and Christianity and Islam, we can speak of God as the kind of all-powerful, all-knowing, creator God, who also is the judge at the end of time, who can be a wrathful God for people who sin and do not repent. But I think in all these religions they want to emphasize that above all that God is merciful. Hindus believe in many gods, but they also believe that one God is the Supreme Lord of the universe. Depending on where your allegiances lie, that God can be Vishnu or Shiva or the goddess Devi. And Buddhism isn't primarily focused on a God, certainly not a God in the sense of the Abrahamic traditions. In what operates in Buddhism and Hinduism is a kind of natural law of moral cause and effect called karma. So there's no God that's really judging you on your deeds.
There are also other people who are not bound to a certain religion and have an unclear idea about God.
I believe something is up there overlooking us. I just don't know what exactly. So you could call it a god, you could call it fate, you could call it just this force in the universe, but whatever it is, it is higher and more important than we.
I believe in a higher power. I don't have a religion, but I do believe that there's something bigger than us. And
How can you define the higher power?
as an energy, pretty much. As a force, as an energy, something that's there, but not necessarily in a person or to me, God is an energy, it's a force.
In this perspective, people range from those who believe in one ultimate power to others who believe in different gods or goddesses, giving them less abilities and different names. Then there are those who believe in a power that they don't know, to others who prefer to believe in facts explored by science rather than believing in the unseen.
Many people from various parts of the world, various fields and ages, collaborated in our quest to explore and evaluate the validity of the belief in a supreme being.
In order to evaluate the validity of our beliefs, we must first examine what forms our beliefs.
I can't wait to see my baby. What does he look like? What will he be like?
Is he going to be a believer? Is the belief in God a result of our surrounding environment and life experiences, or is it deeply rooted in our nature? Are we born believers?
I don't know what we are born to be in order to be, but we are born believing. A little child who is the weakest, a little baby physically weak, has no power, no strength. How come it has so much trust? From experiences in this life? No. Because everything that you can experience, or most of the things you can experience in this world, they are rather giving you the opposite from trust, namely distrust, suspicion. That's why most human beings, when they grow up, they become more and more suspicious and distrustful. And less. If the religion asks you to have tawakkul, where do you want to get it from? Because from my experience with these guys or with other people, I should get tawakkul, but they cheated me, and that one dumped me, and that one left me, and that one hurt me, and that one... where should I get my tawakkul, my trust from? So, in that sense, I'm not saying the baby is born in order to have faith. I'm saying the baby is born with faith. And it may either lose it, which is possible, or diminish, less, or it may increase in faith, or keep its faith. But these are all possibilities.
الرضيع مولود بفطرة الله. كل مولود يولد على الفطرة.
Psychology is always looking for genetic reasons for everything. And many of them believe that a belief in any kind of religion or a belief in God is something that happens in our brain. That isn't real, again, but it happens in our brain, so then we would maybe want to look at genetic or biological causes for people who believe in God. Maybe there's a hereditary thing about believing in God. So, of course, the other side would be, the other possibility maybe is that God really does exist, created all people, so people naturally have a belief in God because that's who they were made by. But certainly psychology rejects that outright.
الطفل بيبقى موجود الإيمان في حاجة بنسميها اللاوعي. كل اللي بيعمله الأب والأم أنهم بيوقظوا هذا الوعي. بيقولوا إن الطفل بيبقى موجود فيه قوة المشي. بس كل اللي بيعملوه الأب والأم أنهم بيستحضروا هذه القوة لما رجليه تقدر تشيله. هكذا أيضا الإيمان موجود فيه. الأب والأم بيستحضروا فيه لما يكون عنده الحاجات اللي تخليه يقبل هذا الإيمان ويعيشه.
Well, there's been recently some interesting kind of work done. People, scientists who are studying, the workings of the brain, and some are trying to develop a theory that there is a God part of the brain, a part of the brain that tends towards belief in that type of thing. But I don't think anything conclusive has been shown yet. I think this is a fairly new field and so forth. And so I tend to see it as something that's, developed within human cultures.
Then, to what extent our beliefs are influenced by human culture and the surrounding environment?
What made you believe?
Well, the way I was raised. We're taught to love people.
I grew up in a Muslim family, and I learned all the teaching and all the what I had to grow up on values and values of Islam, on teaching Islam.
I am a believer. I was born into Catholicism, and I've considered myself at least a member of that church and that religion since I've been born.
I would say probably a disbeliever, but not so much in the sense that I don't agree with people that believe in God, but more just I don't see myself as believing in a being that controls everything.
When did you start to disbelieve?
Probably when, probably around 5th grade-ish. Probably my family isn't at all religious.
Obviously, culture has a direct impact on what we believe or what religion we adhere to. Does it also affect the way we understand this particular religion?
Certainly our culture and the people we're around, the families we grow up in, and the way our religion is viewed in a certain place have a profound effect on our religious beliefs. In fact, I've been surprised sometimes at getting to know people here in Egypt, and you might hear them. I'll give you an example. One of them, I was interviewing a young woman about her beliefs about career and family and these kinds of things, and I asked her what her religion had to say about it. Well, she said, my religion teaches me that men are superior to women, that women should submit to men, and these things. And the funny thing is, when I've told people that story, they all assume that she's Muslim, but she's Christian. So what happens is that, let's take Arab culture, for example. If Arab culture is encouraging us to see women as subordinate to men, then when we read the Quran or the Bible or whatever it might be, we're going to pick out the parts that agree with us and accentuate those. But if we're not, right, and you see this among American Muslims and American Christians, they're going to pick out things that say that men and women are equal and how important that is. So even in our religious beliefs, we're strongly affected by our culture and these kinds of things. And I think sometimes culture I believe that religion is real, but sometimes I think culture affects us powerfully in the way that we see our own religion.
How should we rely on our beliefs if they are predetermined by the family we belong to or the place we were born? Do we belong if we assume our ancestors' beliefs?
Yeah, you say, I'm a believer, fine. Why are you a believer? Because I was born Muslim, I was born a Christian, I was born Jew, I was born, what do I know, Buddhist or whatever. It is fine, but you have to, that's not the end, it's the beginning. Now you have to believe. You have to believe.
As we see, from a believer's point of view, one should not rely on his family's belief, he has to build his own. From the logical point of view, we are not bound 100% to our family's beliefs. Or else, why are we given some sort of brain power? Why do we see people changing their beliefs, or at least even coming closer to or farther away from what they call God? Let's see if it is common to change our beliefs throughout our lives.
A person's view of God may alter over their life. We would expect that. That would be normal. As they grow and mature, just like our view of our own childhoods or our view of our parents alters and changes as we grow and have different kinds of experiences. When something tragic happens, maybe that changes our view of religion or our faith or our view of God, maybe in one direction or the other. Maybe we can think God is cruel and unkind and doesn't care about people, or maybe we begin to say God is in control of anything, I should submit my will to God instead of trying to make my own things happen. So I think we would better maybe see belief as something that's constantly in flux, constantly changing, rather than being surprised by our beliefs changing.
Well, I think, people are questioning human beings, and again, if they sometimes find that the religion they belong to isn't answering the questions they have, then it would be a natural thing to perhaps look elsewhere.
هذا الهاجس لا يأتي لكل أحد، إنما يأتي لأناس مخصوصين في ظروف مخصوصة يكون عندهم شهوة للمعرفة، وحينئذ فشهوة المعرفة تحل بالبحث، فليبحث وليرى هل دينه الذي ولد عليه هو الصحيح أو أن هناك دينا آخر هو الأصح. وهكذا البشرية في طول عمرها دائما كانت تبحث عن الحق.
Is it an increasing phenomenon?
I think it's very much an increasing phenomenon because we in the modern world are much more aware of a variety of religions than people in the past have been.
Let's delve in people's experiences of changing their beliefs and find out what is the cause of this life-altering change. Is it a psychological need, a life experience, or a product of rational thinking?
My family, when I was growing up, they never mentioned anything about God. It was never talked about at home, but I knew that we didn't belong to any particular religion. I figured this out on my own. I had a very close friend growing up from about the age of 10, and she believed in God, and I thought about it in my mind. And this was about the age where I changed. And I suddenly realized, why are my parents not believing in God? And why are my family not believing?
What made you convert to Buddhism?
Well, I suppose it was that I found that it gave me it was something that I was sympathetic to. The ethics of the religion were it had its morality was something that I identified very much and admired very much and thought was worthy of following. And the meditation aspect of the tradition was helpful to me as well, and giving me a greater sense of being at peace with the world and so forth. And so those were some of the reasons. The time when I started to think of myself as a Buddhist was probably about the age of 35 or so.
And now, what caused you to consider Christianity again?
Well, I was raised as a Christian, and in this environment that I've been in the past 4 years where I've been teaching comparative religion, I've had the occasion to revisit a lot of Christian writings. And, there's also a lot in the teachings of Jesus that I find very admirable and worthy of following. And so it's piqued my curiosity about that as well. And I also had an experience last year where I was undergoing a bit of a crisis with illness, and it was a frightening time, and it was a time when I felt that God was present, that Jesus was present, that His love was there, and that no matter what happened, that there was that care and love there.
Let's see other forms of change. What causes people to discontinue believing?
When a human being grows up, you also may notice that at a certain age, most of them or many of them have difficulties with believing. Yeah, usually it happens in what we call puberty. Some lose their faith. They say, I can't believe anymore. When I was small as a child, I used to believe in this and that, but now I have difficulties. I can't. Why? What happened? What changed? Well, what happened is that you grew up and you find it important for you now to be someone, to be yourself. To start when they are 14, 15, whatever, 16 or maybe around that age, it's very important for them. That's my idea. I didn't just get it from someone else. It's my feeling. It's what I think. It's me. Okay? When that happens, belief goes out through the back door. You are the most important person in the whole universe. Yeah, of course, as we say, there can't be two in the center of the circle. If you go in the center of the circle, God moves out to the periphery. If God is in the periphery of the circle, you can't be there at the same time. You have to be in the periphery. But they don't want to be. You don't want to be in the periphery when you are 14 or 15 or 16. You want to be in the center. Look at all the teenagers. And some of us, or many of us, we remain to be like this till the end of our lives.
Maybe Aisha had come to believe only to be different from her family and to develop her independent personality.
Everyone wants to have their own personality. But I don't really think that I wanted to be completely different from all my family. That wasn't really in my mind. And because my family grew up without a religion, I wasn't rebelling against anything in particular.
What made you believe in something your parents didn't believe in? What was the real cause?
Yeah.
The turning point?
Well, the turning point for me really was being brought up in Scotland. It's a beautiful country. It's full of nature, full of rivers and mountains and valleys, and all around me the environment was so pretty. And it's very hard to look at all these things and not believe and not know that there's a God, who made all these things. And, I had friends, like I said, that were, Christians growing up, and I knew that they believed in God. And I felt they had something very precious to them that I didn't have. You can have material things, but something else very precious, it's not material, that you belong to, So I was very interested in religion, and I started reading about other religions and thinking about it.
Although Aisha explained that she had come to believe due to rational logic thinking, others may think that if we use our minds without any external influence or brainwash, we will stick to facts and science. This will lead us to face reality and not to hold on speculations or stories from the past.
I don't believe in God, no.
Would you tell me what made you, or when you became a disbeliever?
I guess it was when I got into university and started taking philosophy courses and stuff, where you start to ask yourself questions and then looking for answers, but you soon find that the more questions you ask, it just leads to more questions, so there's not really any answers to.
The philosophers, in my studies of philosophy, I was always struck by an image that occurs very often when they speak about the wall. There's a famous philosopher, I think Wittgenstein, I don't know if you have heard him, who said that all the problems of philosophy are the bumps that the philosopher kind of got from bumping against this wall. Yeah? You know the story of Juj and Majuj? Yeah, they also were behind the wall. So what do? They wanted to get through the wall. They started to dig a hole. Okay, and they started to dig in the morning, and in the evening, they had dug pretty well. The hole was there, and they said, tomorrow we're going to come back and dig again. They came in the morning. What happened? The hole was closed, so they had to start again. And that repeated itself 4 or 5, I don't know how many times, until one of them said, Insha'Allah, tomorrow we will continue. And the whole was as it had been left before. So that's the difference. If the philosophers could say, if God wills, we will continue. Because what does it cost you to say, if God wills? What is the price? The price is that you say, it is not according to my will. If He wills. Okay? But in order to be able to say that and really mean it, you have to be able to leave your will. And that is difficult for all of us, right? All human beings. So, instead of leaving your own will, I'd rather bump one more time and I'll tell you what happened to me while I bumped again. So what, and I'm writing my philosophical books about that. And because it's difficult for me to let go, to give up my own will.
In order to give my will to God, I have to know if He exists. And reason is the only tool I have.
Let's discuss human thinking. Is there enough evidence to believe in God?
I mean, maybe there's too much evidence that we are not seeing. That's also a possibility. Yeah, again, I can quote to you a verse of the Quran. It says that Huwa Aqrab. He is closer to you than your habl warid, than your jugular vein. God is closer to you than your jugular vein. Okay? What's your jugular vein? That is the closest to you, because they cut it, you're dead, you're gone. If He is closer to you than your jugular vein, that means He is closer to you than you are to yourself. And you can't see Him for that reason, not because He's too far away. He's too close. He's too evident. But we always look at a distance and say, where is God? Is there anything to believe in? You know, I'm not seeing anything.
It is not necessarily the what of the question, you know, like what is God, or who is God, or how can I understand God? Because human beings understand from a very, very long time ago, even just looking into the night sky and seeing the stars, they understand there is something more. No matter how much I investigate, no matter how far we send the spaceships, no matter how strong the microscopes become, and it is that more that we have confidence in.
If I look into myself, into the universe around myself, into any moving being, any plant or animal, one can easily see an orderly, systematic, immense, vast universe that cannot be the product of an accident or a chance. It could not have created itself by itself. So there must be a creator for the universe.
One begins by simple contemplation. Judaism in particular accepts the notion that a thinking, rational person can, with just a little bit of reflection, come to recognize the workings of God in the universe, recognize that there is no watch without a watchmaker, and recognize that there is a creator.
Responding to this argument, some people suggest that these objects are truly not created on their own. However, they are created through raw material which is naturally found in this world. That is to say, without a creator.
Human cannot create cells. I mean, with all our laboratories, technical equipment, our knowledge about the cell, we can make a cell. But atheism argues that just something happened 4 billion years ago, just a storm just hit some water, and by chance they came out of a living cell, a bacteria. I mean, that's what they believe in, but they can support it. I mean, it's like saying, well, I believe that the pyramids happen to be by chance because there's raw material. Yeah, the pyramids are made of stones, and the world is full of stones, yes. But I think it would be very irrational to say that, well, the pyramids are full of stones, and so they came to be by chance, and there was an earthquake in ancient Egypt, then you had the pyramids. No, the pyramids were designed by intelligent people. They could not have been formed by natural, undirected, unguided events. So I think humans are more complex than pyramids. Even the tiniest cell is way more complex than the pyramids. And I think to see that they are designed, it's not difficult to see that they are designed. Only if you have a bias against the designer, you would deny that.
Enough to mention that the living cell in the body of a human being, which is in the order of 0.03 millimeter in diameter, has been given the capacity to produce more than 200,000 protein molecules that cannot be produced by any factory made by man, or even imagined to be built and has not yet been built. The genetic code in the living cell occupies less than 1 over a million of a millimeter, cubic millimeter. And of course, if this is spread, it will reach the length of about 2 meters. And in these 2 meters, we have 18.6 billion chemical bases. And these bases are so orderly and systematically arranged that if you change the position of one of these nitrogenous bases or chemical bases, either you can deform this creature or you can inhibit its existence completely.
As long as everything must have a creator, then who created God?
This is a wrong question. It's like asking what is in the north of the North Pole. There is nothing in the north of the North Pole because it is the very north. It's the most north point you can find. So who created God is a wrong question, because God is, by definition, uncreated creator of the world. That's what God means. Some people ask this when you make a reasoning from created things. For example, we say, well, there is so much evidence for design in the universe, so there must have been a designer. There are so many created things in the world, so there must have been a creator. And then they ask, so who created God? Well, that's a wrong question, because the argument doesn't go like this: everything has a creator. We don't say that. We say every created thing has a creator. And if there's something which is not created in itself, it's if his nature is not being created, and that's what God is, what God means, and then it will be a wrong question to ask who created God. God is, by definition, the uncreated, the everlasting, eternal being, which brought every other being into existence.
Mustafa Mahmoud quoted in his book A Chat with an Atheist that the question is lost. You already speculate that the Creator is controlled by the same laws as his creatures. We, the sons of time and place, have cause as our rule. God, who created time and place, is necessarily above both of them. According to your argument, you expect any inventor to follow the same rules as his invention.
I cannot see this James moving his hands and feet. Why isn't he moving the way we do?
As long as there is a specialist that creates each specific object, for example, a carpenter for furniture, a watchmaker for watches, so how can believers claim that there is one God who created everything?
Of course, God is one. There is only one God, of course. There are no many gods. It will be a contradiction.
Mustafa Mahmoud quoted, "God is complete, only the incomplete multiply."
Science also hints us that there's only one God, because, I mean, of course, our religious traditions teach us that there's one God, but if you just look at the scientific evidence, because there's just a great harmony in the world, in all the universe. I mean, the elements, the carbon that's in our bodies are produced in the giant stars in some far distant galaxy. Everything just fits into each other. And I think that's a very good reason to conclude that the whole system is designed by just one designing intelligence.
حقيقة كبرى في الكون يراها كل أحد في وحدة الخلق بين الأسماك، بل بين الأميبا وحيدة الخلية، وبين الطير، وبين الحيوان، وبين الإنسان. هناك وحدة يراها أهل الحياة، دراسات الحياة البيولوجي.
Now that some of us are using science to prove that there is only one creator, why was religion the enemy of science and for so long?
There is a realm in which science can produce knowledge, information, and wisdom, and there is a point beyond which science has no information and not very much that can tell us. Religion is not designed to provide us with facts about the universe, is not designed, or it's not its function, to teach what it is that science can teach. The problems arise when the boundaries between these disciplines and sources of knowledge become blurred. When science goes beyond the postulates of science and talks about things that are not demonstrable, then it encroaches upon the territory of religion. But any scientist, anyone who understands philosophy of science, knows very well that there are certain boundaries.
In Islam, there is no schism between science and religion. The Western tradition was that separation. The Islamic tradition was the pursuit of knowledge is a religious dictate on every Muslim man or woman, as Prophet Muhammad said. Now there is a change in the West, because some very notable scientists, top scientists, are coming back to religion again and to believe in God again.
If this is the case, why do we see Muslims as we see them nowadays?
Because the Quran says something and the Muslims do something else. Whereas the call of Islam is to unite, to become one, what the Muslims do is to disunite, to become factions and fractions fighting one another. And if you try to know Islam from the Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, you will know that this is the religion that led to the establishment of a civilization. But unfortunately, people read Islam in what they see Muslims doing. And what Muslims are doing runs contrary to Islam, just as what Christians are doing runs contrary to Christianity. Jesus said, God is love. Jesus said, you have been told to love your relative and hate your enemy, but I tell you, love your enemy and bless those who curse you and help those who trespass against you. And so we see that Jesus taught something, Christians are doing something else. What would Jesus' view be on atomic bombs, on colonialism, on the white man's supremacy, etc., etc.? And the same with the Jews. Once I read a famous rabbi, Rabbi Hillel. A young man went to him and said, can you explain the Torah to me while I stand on one foot? And he said, do unto others what you wish others would do unto you. This is the Torah. The rest is commentary. Now go and study it. What do you find in the world today?
Some people might still find that science is totally incompatible with religion, for religion makes claims that can be and have been scientifically disproved.
Do you think that science is fully compatible with the Holy Book?
هو ما فيش أبدا تناقض بين الكتاب المقدس والعلم. هناك أمثلة بسيطة خالص. لو جبنا مثلا سفر زي سفر أيوب، وده سفر من أسفار الكتاب المقدس، هنجد أنه يصف الخالق وصف لطيف جدا جدا، فيقول المعلق الأرض على لا شيء. حاجة تانية كمان لما نجد في سفر أشعياء يقول الجالس على كرة الأرض. في سفر أشعياء يقول الجالس. أشعياء ده وجد قبل المسيح بحوالي 750 سنة. فلما يجي يتكلم عن الكرة الأرضية يقول الجالس على كرة الأرض، ما قالش على مسطح الأرض ولكن قال على كرة الأرض. طبعا معروف ان الارض اكتشفت انها كرويه يمكن في اخر القرن ال15 واول القرن ال16 لما جه كابريونوس دوت العالم، او بعد كده جاليليو بدا يستعمل المناظير. الغريب جدا 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 ان على الرغم ان هذا كان موجودا في الكتاب المقدس، لكن الكنيسه الكاثوليكيه التي حكمت جاليليو ما ادركتش كده، لان مش بتقرا الكتاب المقدس كويس. الحاجه الثانيه بقى المهمه جدا جدا، الكتاب المقدس وكلام الله كلام له ثابت، له ثوابت، ما بيتغيرش مع الزمن. لكن ما رأيكم في العلم الذي يتغير كل يوم مع الزمن، وكل يوم اكتشافات جديدة، ونظرية تطلع ونظرية تيجي بعديها تعدل من النظرية الأولى، ثم تأتي نظرية ثالثة وتعدل من النظريتين اللي قبل كده. لما العلم يصل إلى الحقيقة الكاملة، أعتقد أنه سيتفق اتفاق كامل مع الكتاب المقدس.
القرآن نص يتحمل كل الأسقف المعرفية، في حين ان اي نص اخر حتى تفسير القرآن من عند البشر لا يتحمل جميع الاسقف المعرفية. عندنا مثلا في سورة ياسين عندما يقول والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم، عندما نزلت هذه الآية وسمعها البدوي في الصحراء فإنه حملها على سقفه المعرفي، فإنه يرى بعيني رأسه الشمس وهي تتحرك الحركة الظاهرية لها في السماء. لكن بعد ذلك عندما ندرس الهندسة ونعلم أن كرة الأرض قليلة بالنسبة لجرم الشمس الكبير، ونعلم استحالة أن تكون الشمس هي التي تدور، وأن الأرض هي التي تدور حول نفسها على محورها 23 درجة ونصف، حينئذ نجد سقفا معرفيا جديدا. وحينئذ اكتشفنا أن الشمس تجري في الفضاء الكوني، فضاء المجرة، نحو نجم فيجا بسرعة 12 ميل في الثانية. إذن الشمس تجري.
Science has evolved over the centuries. Beliefs about basic principles in our universe have changed, and we are constantly seeking the answers. Would it be possible that I am watching an image of my grandfather? Can we find answers to questions about creation, life on our planet, and evolution?
Something very surprising happened throughout the 20th century, and the materialist theories of science started to be challenged by science itself. First, we saw this in for example, in the cosmology field. Before the 20th century, in the early 20th century or in the late 19th century, people had the idea of an eternal universe. But the Big Bang theory, which was first kind of developed in the 1920s, then supported by successive scientific discoveries, showed that the universe had a beginning. Time and matter started to exist at some point, at some distant point in the past. And many scientists who discovered the Big Bang were either religious people or they turned into religious after seeing that the universe had a beginning. Another discovery, again, in the field of physics, astrophysics, has been what scientists call the entropic principle. That's a very important concept. This was first termed in 1970s. The entropic principle means, anthropic means human. It's the human principle. And the physicists who discovered this concept showed that every physical aspect of the universe is fine-tuned for human life. For example, let me give you one example. We know that there are 4 fundamental forces in nature: electromagnetism, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, gravity force. They have some values, but they could have different values. I mean, gravity is just a very minor, minuscule part of the electromagnetic force, for example. It could have been different, and if it was different, you wouldn't have any atoms in the universe. You would just have radiation. Another issue has been the scientific critique of Darwinian evolution. As we know that since the 19th century, Darwinian evolution has been another tool for atheism in order to claim its supposed scientificity. But the theories of Darwin in the recent decades are being challenged now in the biological world, in the scientific community. And the alternative to Darwinian evolution, as some scientists are supporting right now, is the theory called intelligent design, which says life is not the product of blind forces of nature, as Darwinian theory argues, but life is intentionally created. It is designed. So I think in every aspect of biology, Freud is just falling down in psychology. We know Marx just went down in politics. All the major atheistic theories of science or the societies are just going down one by one.
Even late scientists have their arguments regarding the evolution process.
Professor Dr. Homer Smith, a pioneer in nephrology, wrote in his book titled From Fish to Philosopher, in the opening chapter titled Man was certainly not the goal of evolution, which evidently had no goal. He was not planned, in an operation wholly planless. However, when Smith discussed the evolution of fish in adapting to their new environment through the development of their kidney function when they migrated from fresh river water to salty seawater, he was surprised how their kidney functions changed to adapt to the new environment by saying, how the elasmo branches, which means migrated fish, do this is also a mystery. His colleague, Dr. Hassaballah, who is a professional in the same field, responds to this viewpoint from the perspective of a believer. He commented by stating that what changed the kidney function of these early migrating fish before their migration, not after, is similar to a person preparing his bags to go to another cold country. Will this person wait till he reaches to adapt himself? Or will he pre-plan for this trip by taking with him heavy clothes? In the process of fish migration, there must be a master plan behind this pre-planned evolution.
Not only our existence is a controversial issue, but there are many others as well. A chief editor of an Arab-German magazine wrote in her poem, Veil of Religions, asking God using the following statements.
Why did you draw those of us who acknowledge your oneness into disagreement? Why did you multiply in us when you're the one and only one?
There are so many others who share the same question. If God is omnipresent, why people should disagree on him?
Let me speak about the Abrahamic religions. Those are the ones that have the concept of the deity as an omnipotent, omniscient being, eternal, all-powerful, or knowing. There is fundamental agreement between those religions with regard to, number one, first and foremost, the existence of God, who is the creator of the universe, and secondly, with regard to the nature of that deity. They share the common notion that not only does God exist, but at some point in human history, God revealed himself to man, and the rest is all a matter of detail.
Let me first comment on the Abrahamic religions. That is, the vision and the belief that it all started by an ultimate creator. And these three religions are in fact a continuum. They are not different religions, but the continuum of the same religion.
الله ده الذي يملى الكون. الله اللي الإنسان ما يقدرش يوصل له، ما يقدرش يحصره، ما يقدرش أبدا يضعه تحت العقل ولا تحت المنظور ولا المنظار. ولذلك الله عشان خاطر يعلن عن نفسه بيعلن عن نفسه بطرق كثيرة. هو الذي عرف الإنسان نفسه، فبيعلن عن نفسه في اليهودية، وأعلن عن نفسه في المسيحية، وأعلن عن نفسه في الإسلام. وكل هذه إعلانات إلهية لو حطيناها على بعض وقلنا هل هو الله، برضه مش هنقدر نقول إن هو ده الله، لأن الله أكبر من كده بكتير قوي بقى. فليست هذه اختلافات.
If God is watchful, omniscient and omnipotent, then why would he let evil occur? Is it possible that he knows all? Then why does he not stop things before they happen? If God is really there, why is there suffering?
I mean, some events in life makes me question if I'm a believer. Like events such as issues like war, starvation, and so on makes me question. But most times, on a personal level, I'm a believer.
Why there's evil? Why there's badness in the world? Well, I think it is a reason for the exam, the imtihan we are having in the world. I mean, if everything would be perfect, then people wouldn't understand what perfectness is. You can only understand light by seeing darkness. You can only know what is happiness by feeling and sensing sorrow and pain.
We do not comprehend this life the way God comprehends it. We are imperfect creatures. We come to this life for a temporary period of time, but the story started long before we came and will continue long after we die, and all we can perceive is that little part of it that we witness and see during our life. But before that scope and after it, we do not know. We are limited. We are more limited than the universe at large, and more limited than the story that God wanted to be. Sometimes things happen to us that we feel are very bad until we acquire the wisdom to know that what might look very bad today might in fact be the best thing that ever happened to us. Of course, if one of my wishes every time I face a bad situation to raise my head and say, God, explain to me what is the good thing behind this, then I wouldn't be a mu'min. This is not the way to show your trust to God. But faith is to know that what happens is the best for you, even if it doesn't explain itself.
It is important, I think, for me to understand that how I understand things is not the whole story. And how I perceive things is not the whole story.
Nobody can say that the world is unfair because we see reward and punishment in our existence. The fact that we see diseases, accidents, killings, wars, because first of all, Allah would like us to realize the fact that this is not eternity. Life in this world is very temporary, very transitional, and it should not be taken for granted that everything will go according to our own wishes and desires. Unless there are these calamities, people will never learn.
Regarding this point, Mustafa Mahmoud quoted that there are two sides to everything. Disease creates prophylaxis and vaccines. Pain creates endurance and strength. Earthquakes release massive pressure and help protect the earth crust from destruction. Apart from the natural disasters, we are responsible for most of the human suffering, because we always have a choice. Through this freedom of choice, we are liable to make mistakes. And there is no point to freedom unless we have the right to experience trial and error, and the freedom to choose between doing good and doing evil.
In spite of the fact that our religions claim that they teach us to love and respect one another, why is it that their followers continue to hate each other and to fight one another throughout history? Maybe our lives would be much better without religions. Maybe we'd end up being one nation.
I think that on a sort of grand political scale, human beings, you know, we are tool makers, and we can use anything practically as a tool, or there are many things we can use as tools, and there are many ways that we can use those tools. And so the mind is our kind of ultimate tool, you know, and it is this mind that tries to grasp what is the meaning of life, what is the nature of God, how am I to understand this? And it is this mind also that can take that idea and make it into something that is horrific, and make it into something that brings harm and really terror to the world. So it is the mind that we have, that how do we use it, you know?
Religions that have been used and have been fabricated and have been formed in ways to serve mankind. Right? Religion, if you listen to what religions say in their main sources themselves. Don't listen to what people say about them. Yeah, because these people usually they have interests, whatever they are. For them, a religion is a very useful tool for instance, political purposes, or whatever. That means dunya purposes. Yeah. In our days, the worst thing about religion is that everybody just thinks that religion is something for dunya and not for akhirah. Akhirah, you know. Now, what can we do with religion here? What is the purpose of it? Well, that is a very gross distortion.
هذه أغلبها سياسة ترجع إلى السياسة وليس إلى أصل الدين. الدين يعلمنا كيف ندافع عن ذاتنا، وهذا ربنا يقول: وقاتلوا في سبيل الله وليس في سبيل أنفسكم ولا في سبيل أي شيء يتعلق بمصالحكم الذين يقاتلونكم. إذن هم يقاتلون فنحن نرد عليهم العدوان. الذين يقاتلونكم ولا تعتدوا إن الله لا يحب المعتدين.
لا 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 ليس هناك أبدا حروب قامت بسبب الدين. الحروب قامت أصلا بسبب التعصب. الحروب اللي قامت بين الكاثوليك وبين البروتستانت دول في ايرلندا وفي الحتت دي كلها ليس هذا دينا. ده تعصب الانسان وغباوته ورفضه للاخر، رفضه للذي يختلف معه في الفكر. احنا عندنا كتاب يقول: من اين الحروب من اين الخصومات، اليست من شهواتكم الكامنه في اعضائكم.
Maybe religion is not the cause of war, but does it improve human behavior?
Don't draw in Mom's book, she will get angry. She's not here.
Do you think atheists are better off not believing in religion at all, or do you think people that with religion are better off?
You know, I think a lot of atheists are spiritual. Because, I mean, if you're an atheist, but you're an honest person, if you think like, or, you know, if you're just that way, if you just feel that's a good way to be, then, like, you're well off. Or if you're an atheist and you're a kind and giving person, I mean, I think that's great too.
God's voice and spirit is in every human being, whether that human being believes in God or not. God is in human beings. And therefore, most people have a common understanding about good and evil. Everyone will tell you if you help others, it's good. And everyone will tell you if you are bad to others or hurt them, then this is bad. And this is God's voice in every human soul.
People may think that those who believe in God insist on morality, justice, and honesty just because of their fear of a divine punishment. Isn't it better to hold on to all good virtues just because we are good humans and want to serve society?
المؤمن الحقيقي يعمل الخير لأنه بيحب إله الخير، وإله الخير قال له اعمل الخير، فهو بيعمله حبا في إله. مش بس حبا في إله، حبا في إله وحبا في الآخر. الإنسان الذي يعمل الخير خوفا أو رعبا أو طلبا لثوابا أو عقابا، هذا الشخص يعتبر لسه ما عرفش ربنا كمان. بغير أنا أعتبره شخص زي الشخص المراهق، مراهق في تدينه. أما الملحد الذي يعمل الخير فهي فضيلة اجتماعية. عنده شوية فضائل اجتماعية اتعلمهم وهو صغير، قالوا له ما تكذبش، ما تعمل مش عارف يعمل ايه، فجست انها مجرد فضائل اجتماعية. والفضائل الاجتماعية موجودة، ولو بصينا للفضائل الاجتماعية هنلاقي انحدار للدين. يعني هو الابهات الكبار قوي 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 كانوا متدينين، علموا اولادهم فضائل اجتماعيه كويسه. الابهات اللي بعدهم رفضوا ربنا وصاروا ملحدين، لكن علموا اولادهم الحاجات كويسه لانهم حسوا ان دي احسن حاجه ممكن تتعمل. علموهم لاولادهم، ابتدوا اولادهم يعملوهم بتلقائيه بعيده عن ربنا.
There has been a lot of research done measuring morals with respect to religion. Some came back with positive results, others with negative ones. Can we rely on these results?
And maybe I'll ask somebody, a psychologist, how religious they are on a scale from 1 to 10. But I mean, my reporting of how religious I am, how well does that correlate with how religious I really am? If I say that I believe it's always right to be honest, does that mean I'm always honest? In fact, if I'm a liar, I'm likely to say I'm always honest because I'm a liar. And if I'm in a situation where somebody's asking me how religious I am, and I'm in a country or in a place where that's emphasized very strongly, I'm more likely to say I'm a very religious person because of the pressure I feel about saying that. So any scientific study of religion, whether it agrees with a religion or disagrees with religion, you have to be really skeptical of it. You have to be careful of it.
It is also advisable to be very skeptical about the studies done relating beliefs to nations.
So what they'll do is they'll compare, one of these other studies compared nation upon nation and whether or not the nation is religious, and then crime rates and things like this. But the problem, huge problem, is this. Let's take America and Canada. America is probably a more religious nation than Canada. And America also has more violent crime than Canada, by quite a lot actually. And so we might say, well, see, religious people are more violent. But of course, in reality, religious people aren't more violent, but America has gun laws that are much more, I don't know if liberal, I guess the conservatives are the ones pushing for gun laws, but in the American Constitution it says you have the right to bear arms, so that if your government is ever suppressing the people can rise up against the government, right? Now, that means there are more guns, and America has a lot of problem with the availability of guns. And the school shootings aren't done because these people are praying in the morning and then they go shoot people. It's because they happen to have guns available to them. So when we make these sweeping generalizations, America's a religious country and it has more violent crime, Canada's less religious and it doesn't have one, we're comparing things that just don't belong.
How can we be skeptical about these scientific studies while we believe in the stories like Moses' cradle reached the Pharaoh safely through the Nile, his rod was transformed into a snake, Jesus healed the sick, and so on? Why would we have to believe in these unreasonable stories of what we call miracles that are stated in the holy books when we can't see any of them now?
Real thing that makes me a skeptic of like a lot of religions that focus around like old beliefs is that I don't know, I don't see any modern day miracles for myself, so like what is there to make me believe other than like what is said in a book? And I see that as like kind of mythology, not necessarily a belief.
هذه ليست أساطير، هذه روايات تاريخية موثقة، لكنهم يؤمنون بالمخربشات والمنقوشات فقط، ولا يؤمنون بما جاء به الرسل وما تناقله المؤمنون.
A miracle is something that happens in the physical world and not according to physical laws. That was traditionally, so to speak, used for people who could not believe without seeing something. That's going back again to the same point. They said, yeah, you're telling me that there is God, right? Proof, sign, give me a sign. I can't see. They said, okay, just a second. I will see if I can, if God gives me a miracle. And then so that you can see something with these eyes, but you can't understand how it is possible. You know, how the stuff of Moses turning into snake, how is it possible? Jesus Christ being born without a father, how is it possible? The miracle of Islam, of the Prophet of Islam, is the Quran. The Quran is miraculous too. How is it possible?
الانسان شوف الانسان اللي اصلا مش عايز يؤمن لو معجزه حدثت امامه ما ممكن ان يؤمن. الايمان معناه التصديق.
We have to have faith in order to believe. Isn't rational thinking sufficient enough? Anyways, Albert Einstein said, I never came upon any of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking.
God can't be the moon, can't be the stars, God can't be the sun or the sky. How can we get to know Him? Does rational thinking lead us to recognize God?
If by rational thinking we mean that thinking which uses the power of the mind, then we must say that it leads in a certain way and in its own way. Okay, now what is that way? Traditionally we distinguish in theology and also in philosophy between two main aspects of God. One is called transcendence, which is expressed in Arabic by saying that God is laysa kamithli shay. He is not like anything. The other thing is that all religions always have stressed also the other aspect that huwa ma'akum aynama kuntum. He is with you wherever you are. Right? So this is a very strange thing because God is not two gods, it's one God who is both. The mind usually proceeds negatively. So it can't say what God is not. God is not this, God is not that, God is not this, God is not that, and until it reaches a point beyond which it cannot go. Now we don't still know what He is, and the mind cannot tell us because it has reached its end. Okay, so in one respect, yes, it gives us the knowledge of God in its own particular way, and that is why in many religions the use of the mind is very much al-aql, is very much encouraged. You should use your mind, you should think. So the mind is important, but it is not sufficient. So how do you want to become aware of Him being with you wherever you are. You cannot know this through your mind. We have been given scriptures and religions and to be able to become aware of that presence, of that His being with us. And therefore, faith is also important. It plays a particular role.
We have to repeat the procedure. We have missing data that we should have taken into account.
Indeed, missing data will lead to inaccurate scientific conclusions.
So how do we go about proving the existence of God? What kind of data do we need to calculate, and where do we go about getting it? If God is infinite and immeasurable by time and space, then maybe we need to measure our own faith. But then, what is faith?
Bob Proctor said, "To believe in the things you can't see and touch is no belief at all. But to believe in the unseen is both a triumph and a blessing."
What makes a baby come to life? We cannot be accounted or described wholly on the basis of physics, chemistry, or even animal behavior. We're much more. Can we plan what we see in our dreams? Can we measure any human sacrifices? Can we weigh our souls if they are present inside our bodies? What does our soul, spirit, heart, conscience, or self imply? Are they one?
Faith is defined as a strong feeling of trust or confidence in someone or something. So which part of us generates this trust? Is it our heart, our mind, or our soul?
These are quotations said by people about soul and faith. The soul is that which denies the body, for example, that which refuses to run when the body trembles, to strike when the body is angry, to drink when the body is thirsty. The existence of the body has an ultimate end, while the existence of the soul or the self is an eternal concept. And this self knows God through conscience, not by reason. Our quest for justice has led us to the existence of the just, in the same way that our thirst would lead us to the existence of water. The mind doubts, but the heart never does. The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Indeed, we cannot test faith. Can we feel it? Can we find out what is faith necessary for?
Do you realize that you could not put one foot in front of the other if you did not have complete confidence that the ground under your feet is firm? If you had to be worried and doubtful each time you took a step, will it be firm or will I sink, or will the ground not be firm for me? You would be completely dysfunctional, and in fact you don't know what is the truth until you make the step. But in order to make the step, you have to have that kind of confidence.
You can say that faith is necessary where you do not know with your usual ways of knowing. What are our usual ways of knowing? First of all, it's what we can see and hear and taste, touch and smell, what we perceive with our so-called physical senses. That's where we derive our most common ways of knowing from. Then we're also using our minds based on the senses. That is also a way of knowing. Aristotle used to say, when he spoke about knowledge, he always had a strange concept name. He said, what is knowable? Because maybe not everything is knowable, or not everything is knowable with that kind and that way of knowing.
Saint Augustine said, "Faith is to believe in what you do not yet see. The reward for this faith is to see what you believe."
Faith is more perceptive than sight. In other words, who tells you that faith doesn't see? They always say faith is blind faith, right? Maybe faith has a way of seeing that sees more or is more perceptive than these eyes or any other eyes. Who tells you?
الإيمان رؤية ورؤية بعيدة قوي 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 بتخلي الإنسان يشوف حاجات عجيبة يعني.
As we all know, the most challenging thing a person can face in his life is dealing with illness. Do you think that faith plays a role in facing challenges in life?
Yeah, I think you see research on this, and I know a medical doctor who's done work on this from the very beginning, who does therapy with cancer patients, and he gets them after they have the sentence of death passed on them. I mean, they're not the operable cancers. These are people, it's over, they're being told by doctors. And he said that when people find a purpose for their lives and a meaning for it, whether that's religious or not, they live longer, they're happier, sometimes they even go into remission because they just found a reason to live.
I mean, to a certain extent, every doctor can tell you that. If you don't believe, you go to a doctor, okay, you have a problem, you say, oh, that hurts here, there's or whatever. You go to a doctor, and the doctor says, okay, I'm give you, take this. If you don't believe in the doctor, and you don't believe in the medicine, even if before you took it, you think it will be of use to you, it will not help you.
Let's see what physicians say.
When I come to my personal observation, and this goes almost without any single exception, I realize that those patients who enter into the unit and they are very confident that there is a superpower is existing with them, soothing them, relieving them. When the patient enters into this very small cubicle, indeed the patient doesn't feel that he's alone. When he sees me, he starts to smile, although he's receiving a hell of a lot of a very high dose of chemotherapy. And I think we heard lots and lots of about chemotherapies. This patient receives radiotherapy. This patient starts to vomit, starts to have diarrhea, starts to have fever, inflammations everywhere, inflammations in the buccal mucosa so that he cannot even speak, but he can wave or shakes his head. Are you doing fine? He says, yes, I'm doing fine. And still he's having this degree of faith that he's going to be well. Although he's very tired, he's extremely exhausted from the chemoradiotherapy that he received. Most of these patients do very well.
About cure, it depends very much on the character of the patient. Some patients are they worry so much or that they give in so easily. Of course, when you believe in God, it really helps a lot. You can explain that scientifically. You can have neurotransmitters in your blood that help you to endure the pain, that help your immune system, etc. Of course, this is true, and this is also scientific. But again, what's going to make you so much or that much optimistic? It is again when you believe in God.
Let's see what patients think. How do believers handle their problems when it comes to health?
طبعا أكيد الإيمان ليه دور كبير جدا، لأن يعني أنا بشوف مرضى تانيين ويمكن أقل مني بصراحة نفسيتهم تعبانة ومنهارين، ويعني بشوف حاجات غريبة جدا. أنا بقعد أنصحهم رغم إن أنا يعني تعبانة أكتر منهم بكتير. يعني بحس إن أنا كل ما بيجيلي مثلا مرض زيادة على الأمراض اللي عندي، أنا بقولكيش إن أنا طبعا عايزة أمرض، بس أكيد يعني بحس بقرب كبير قوي قوي من ربنا كل ما يجيلي عيا أو حاجة جديدة بمر بيها.
هو ربنا طبعا مش ظالم ابدا، ربنا بيسيب البني ادم الاصابه اللي قادر يحتملها. الحقيقه لو كنت بتعتبري اللي انا مريت بيه ده مشكله او مصيبه بالنسبه لي، فانا بعتبره بجد منتهى الامانه يعني منحه من عند ربنا سبحانه وتعالى بيختبرني فيها، واتمنى ان انا اعدي منها على خير وان هو يرضى عني فيها.
What was your family's reaction to your illness?
الحقيقه انا ابني الوسطاني كان رد فعله انا اتذهلت منه لما قلت له، قال يا بختك يا مامتي، قال لي يا بختك ده انت محظوظه وانا بحسدك، ومش عارفه هتفهميني في الموضوع ده ولا لا. بصراحه انا فهمته جدا.
الانبياء كانوا بيتعرضوا لحاجات كده زمان، يعني كان ربنا بيختبرهم برضه ويعملوا تحصل لهم حاجات قويه جدا اكتر من الحكاية دي.
فطبعا لولا فضل الله علينا وإيمان اللي ربنا يتفضل بيه علينا، يعني كنت أكيد هتجد واحد يعني إنسان محطم، يعني ملوش أي أمل في الحياة. يعني هو تعب بالفشل الكلوي، ومراته بسرطان الثدي ثم سرطان العظم، وزوجتي قاعدة منذ 5 أشهر على السرير لا تتحرك من السرير، وتقريبا أنا اللي بخدمها. فلولا إيماني بالله سبحانه وتعالى، وإن ربنا سبحانه وتعالى يتفضل علينا بأنه ينزل علينا الصبر والرحمة والسكينة، يعني أكيد كان الواحد يبقى يكون غير كده خالص. يعني ما كنتش هبقى قصادكم دلوقتي يعني.
What is your advice to people?
والله يعني أنا من خلال تجربتي أنصح يعني الناس أو اللي بيسمعونا دلوقتي أو بيشاهدونا، إن كل ما قربت من ربنا كل ما كان قدر ذلك يعني، أو تجد حلاوة قربك من ربنا في قلبك، ومحدش هيحس بحلاوة الإيمان ديت أو بحلاوة القرب من ربنا إلا لما تكون خالصة لله. يعني في حديث للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: تعرف إلى الله في الرخاء يعرفك في الشدة.
What gives these people all this serenity, all this strength? Maybe as Karl Marx said, religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of the heartless world and the soul of the soulless condition. It is the opium of the people. Maybe faith is a product of a humankind's creative imagination designed to overcome fear and uncertainty with hope and love. We don't need it anymore. Now we're strong enough to face reality and handle our own troubles.
For me, I just think that it's part of life. Things are going to happen where you're going to be in a difficult situation, and part of life is suffering somewhat, but there's things tend to work themselves out, or if you rely on yourself, you sort of make it through things.
Do people believe in God because He is real, or because of universal human weakness?
It's a great question. Psychology would say, at least the mainstream of psychology over the years would say that, let's take Freud for example, one of the kind of the starters of psychology, would say that a belief in religion and a belief in God is a sign of weakness. That we feel like we have to have something larger and greater than we are, and we tend to identify that with our fathers, which is why he said God is a man, and why they call him a father in Christianity, because we still have a need to feel like we have a protector and a great father or eternal father or something like that to protect us and to take care of us, or a God who created us.
Does a child's need for his own mother deny her existence?
For a long time, clearly it's been that a belief in God is a kind of psychological disorder. It's an illness of some, a mental illness of some sense. That we need it to fulfill some need we have psychologically. I mean, people use the word crutch or something like that frequently.
Let's see some comments about what psychology says about faith.
محدش ابدا يقدر يقول ان الايمان ضعف، بالعكس ده الايمان بيعبأ الانسان بقوه غريبه جدا. الانسان هل الجندي اللي بينزل المعركه لو ما كانش يمتلك الايمان، مش حتى مش موضوع الايمان بالله، يعني انا بتكلم عن الايمان كفضيله موجود. ما كانش الجندي اللي رايح عنده ايمان كامل بالقضيه التي يحارب من اجلها، ما ممكن ابدا ان يحارب او يموت.
If the people are believing in God, most of psychiatric and psychotherapist clinics will never work.
Mustafa Mahmoud stated that the belief that people turn to faith like a drug to relieve them from the pain of everyday life could not be farther from the truth. True belief requires responsibility, accountability, and hard work. It is not a way to escape from responsibility, and it is definitely not a drug.
شوف شوفوا المؤمنين. يعني انت ليه بتقول الكلام ده؟ بص للمؤمنين الحقيقيين، مالكش دعوه بالمتوكلين او اللي بينام ويقول ربنا يبقى ياكلني ولا ربنا يبقى يشربني ولا ربنا. دول ربنا اصلا انا اعتقد كويس ربنا مش بيحبهم. الله بيحب الانسان اللي مجتهد واللي بيجاهد واللي بيكافح.
What makes the belief in God much more powerful than any other form of beliefs?
Well, I would recommend a very good book, God, the Evidence, by Patrick Glynn. That's an American scholar, Patrick Glynn. And in that book, The God, the Evidence, Glynn has a chapter on the issue that you're asking right now. I mean, the impact of faith in human psychology. Now, atheists, of course, claim that, well, it's a psychological effect. I mean, you believe in anything, it makes you feel good. But, Glynn points to something else. Nothing makes humans as happy and as dignified as religious faith. People might believe in different things. People might believe in ideologies, people might believe in philosophies, but there's something different about believing in a creator God. And in that book, there's a very good quote from a scientist, a psychologist, who is not a believer, but the psychologist who studied religious faith and its impact on human psychology for many years. He says, humans are as if they are wired for God.
There's no signal.
Finite communication sources will most likely let us down and leave us abandoned when we need them most. To be truly connected, we must seek that which is beyond our man-made networks. God speaks and listens on a different frequency range that no physical body or high technology uses to speak or communicate. When do you feel closest to God?
I would say that's usually when I'm alone. For example, when I'm outside in the nature. That means when I have nothing that disturbs me, that I can actually think about life. And that might be, for example, when I'm on the top of a mountain, I'm just skiing. Then you just see the nature, you see the whole landscape, and it's just overwhelming. And then actually, usually I see it when there's something good. Like when there's something bad, I wouldn't really think that God is taking part in that, or like He's the reason for that. It's more that when you see good things that I think about God.
Believing in God, for me, is kind of like believing in the unknown. I kind of like that aspect of life, knowing that there is something out there that you can't always touch or smell or see, but it does exist. And being able to know that something is there and someday you may encounter this, I think it's kind of like it's good motivation. It's good anticipation as well. And it's always keeps you kind of on edge, and that there's something there that you can't really perceive, but yeah.
I feel close to God wherever I go. I'm always linked to Him. I talk to Him in my prayers and listen to Him through what goes on around me. God is with us. He created us. He's with us in our good times and bad times.
Believing in God gives you that light. The light always that in the darkness and the sadness gives you that happiness.
Mania is not the only one who used the word light when he spoke about God. Blaise Pascal quoted, "In faith, there is enough light for those who want to believe and enough shadows to blind those who don't." Dr. Hassan Hathout used a similar expression when he was addressing non-believers.
To me, they look like a person standing in front of a lamp, watching his shadow on the wall and moving his hand or his body and watching the movement of the shadow with his own movements and thinking that it is him that created the shadow and it is him that created the movements he is seeing the shadow doing, completely blind to the source of light, because the source of light is behind him. That is the person who does not recognize God. He is unable to see.
What's the impact of faith on humans?
I don't think it is entirely essential for human beings to have faith or trust or complete confidence in a supreme being, because there are actually religions which do not propose a supreme being in which one has faith. But I do think that it is essential for our ability to go forward with courage and with confidence into the future.
Now you are told, for instance, that that Adam and Eve, they lived in paradise, right? We're told. Yeah? This is like a story. We can believe it, we cannot believe it. Then they were kicked out of paradise because of what happened. Okay? Now, let us just listen to it like we listen to a story. And we say, okay, they were kicked out of paradise, and then what? What happened? They landed in a place called Earth, which they were not familiar with. Okay? If you are kicked out of your country, how you feel? Not great, huh? Yeah, you're sad. You want to return to your country, to where you feel at home. Well, I say, okay, go back home. But you say to me, well, how? Because I have to find a way. So the religions say in their sources themselves that God gave you a means to return to Him. All the purpose of the sacred scriptures is that. It's a rope. Okay? They give you a rope. They said, okay, here's a rope. If you go hold on to the rope and you recite and you believe and you hold on to it, you will find your way back. If not, you won't. You stay where you are. I can also not give you a rope or cut the rope, but I give you a rope. So you're asking, is a religion of any benefit? Yeah, of course it is of benefit, because it's the rope. Okay? Yeah, and everything that human beings look for is this rope. Philosophy, the sciences, what is it? What is their purpose?
أنا غير متصور حتى الآن كيف ينكر إنسان الله، لأنه لو أنكره لأصبحت هذه الحياة خدعة كبيرة لا معنى لها. وما هذه الحياة التي أتألم فيها بالمرض أو أشعر فيها بالفراق عند موت ابني أو عزيز لدي؟ ما هذه الحياة التي يرسلني وطني فيها للدفاع عنه فأموت؟ ولما أموت؟ في سبيل وطن أو تراب أو في سبيل قضية ما؟ إنها أسئلة كثيرة جدا ليس لها حل إلا الله.
Let's see practically how lacking or having faith affects people throughout their lives.
Have you ever regretted becoming a believer?
No. I've never regretted it. And since I converted, my life has become better and better every year.
I think being agnostic has given me a bit more to worry about and to think about as opposed to being a true believer, because there's not that certainty that you get through believing in a God and a script. So, I don't think I have as much direction as believers would, and there are downsides to that, I guess stress and anxiety in certain situations, but on the upside you have the freedom to believe in what you feel is the truth, and to further explore. You're not bound by any one religious doctrine or script.
Everybody is a believer in something. Now, whether the cause of this, I don't know, but we seem to need to believe in something. Whether we believe that religion has the answers to our problems and can tell us how we should live our lives, or whether we believe psychology has the answers and can tell us how to live our lives, we look to other people, we look to who we view as authorities to help us know how to live our lives the best.
Then you consider atheists as believers?
Yeah, atheists can be just as dogmatic in their beliefs as anybody else. It's not about my personal beliefs about evolution, but I've gotten in disagreements with people about evolution, for example, who will, I can't even describe to you the kind of argument they will have. They will be angry to where it seems like spit's flying out of their mouth and they're just angry. But they've never read Darwin before. Now, I've read Darwin before. And so I have questions, and I wonder about evolution. I wonder about the problems with it. And there are some things about it that I think, well, can we really assume that that's true or not? For example, are processes that happen over a certain amount of time now, have processes always gone along in the same rate in the past? I don't know the answer to that. And so I wonder. But they don't wonder. They take it as authority. Scientists have said, therefore they believe it. In fact, I think it was Bertrand Russell one time who said, it used to be that people would follow anyone who said, God said, do this. And I said, it's the same now. We're just as faithful. We're just as maybe gullible in some ways. All you have to do is say scientists have said, and everybody believes you. Especially if you say scientists have said and then throw in like Yale University scientists have shown and use some numbers and statistics, people don't question it. So that's faith.
To non-believers, I would ask them to question their faith, because most atheists do not recognize that they have a faith. They think that the religious people have faith, they believe in something, but they don't believe in something, they're just rational, they just face reality. That's what they believe, what they think. But actually atheism is a deep-seated belief, and you need a lot of belief to be an atheist. Actually, there was a recent book titled, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. That was the title of the book. I'd recommend that book. So you need to believe in many things. You have to believe that the whole complexity in the world just happened by chance. You have to believe that water and mud has the capability to produce cells, birds, reptiles, and humans. You have to believe in so many things. And are they really questioning their faith? I would just ask that to an atheist.
Aisha also has something to say to non-believers.
With atheists, they have to keep in mind that you never know when you're going to die. You never know. You can die tomorrow. No one knows. And for me, at least if you believe in God, what have you got to lose? You have nothing to lose.
This is not the first time Aisha gives this advice.
Yeah, when I was about 32 years old, I had a friend, and her son was the same age as me. She was my neighbor, and her son became very, very sick with a brain tumor, and everyone knew that he probably didn't have very long to live. And I had a chance to talk with him on the phone, and I was very sad, because I knew that he was going to die. And I knew that he couldn't stay on the phone very long with me, and I had just a few minutes to talk to him. And in my mind I thought, what can I tell him? What can you talk about? And then I thought, this is a chance. This is an only chance. I told him, please, I want you to believe in God.
Aisha asked her friend to believe in God before dying, but she never mentioned how to believe. Maybe there's no clear recipe to follow.
الله سبحانه وتعالى من رحمته بعباده جعل الطريق إليه يتنوع، فمنا من يصل إليه بتفكير منطقي، ومنا من يصل إليه بقلبه، ومنا من يصل إليه في حال السلم والرغد. فلما يفتح الله علينا من النعم يشعر الإنسان أنه يريد أن يحمد الله سبحانه وتعالى. ومنا من يصل إليه في حال الضيق، فلما يرى المصائب تنزل عليه يحتاج إلى من يستعين به فيلجأ إلى الله. ومنا من يصل إليه بالتأمل في بديع خلقه سبحانه وتعالى. ومنا من يصل إليه بالتدبر في دينه الذي نشأ عليه. أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها؟ أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا، فأمرنا أن نفعل هذا وهذا وهذا. ومنا من يؤمن بالله من تربيته، ومنا من يؤمن بالله من شيء عارض يراه في حياته.
We can have some trust in what trustworthy people tell us, because that is one kind of authority, that if we have respect and trust in certain books or in certain writings or in certain people, then we can perhaps take our answers from them, and a lot of people do. But for some people, that really is not enough. And for those people, I would say it has to rest on your own experience. It has to rest on how do you see, when you act in the world, how does it come back to you? And when you look up at the night sky and how far can your mind go? How far really? It's endless, And then I think if you don't come to an answer, it's kind of okay, because the question is a very big one. And if you understand how big the question about God is, I think you are kind of approaching what is God, that which is more than one can understand and grasp. And yet, you see, that more is still here in every blade of grass, We think we know about this blade of grass, but in fact there is infinitely more to know about it, because each piece of this world is like an infinite world.
الله لو بمجرد الإنسان لو رفع له عينيه فوق كده وطلبه، الله هيوجد على طول. يعني هو يمكن أنا عشان خاطر أقول أبين، يعني مثلا هو في الإسلام بيقول إنه أقرب لكم من حبل الوريد. يعني عايز يقول لي إن ربنا قريب قوي مني. ربنا مش بعيد خالص. الله يسمع الأنة، الله بيسمع التنهيدة، الله بيسمع أي إنسان موجود في مستوى الكون. وفي الله اهتمام خاص بالبشرية وبالكون كله. الله بيهتم بالعصفورة وبيهتم بالسنبلة وبيهتم بالوردة. الله بيلبس الوردة أجمل لبس ممكن، أجمل لبس. انزلي اتفرجي على الورد وشوفي التنوع العجيب في هذا الورد، حتى على طول تمجد الخالق. يعني أنا علشان خاطر أخش لمدير ولا وزير لازم محتاج سكرتارية، ولكن الله عشان أخش له لا محتاج سكرتارية ولا محتاج حاجة. الإنسان اللي يرفع قلبه وعينيه لربنا ويقول له رب، الله يوجد له على طول.
Please God, lead me to your path. Help me get closer to you.
Does God plan everything? Does he even plan my prayers to him?
Is having faith an effort made by us, or is it a process given to us by God?
I have no idea. I can't presume to know what God has or hasn't done. That's beyond my knowledge. So I tell you what I'd like to think is that there is human choice, that God hasn't predestined everything for the world, that humans can change the world, and I think there's a lot of need in today's world to change things for the better, and I hope that it's not all predetermined, that humans can have some choice.
الله سبحانه وتعالى يهدي من يشاء الهداية ويغفر من استغفر لمن استغفر. فكلمة يهدي من يشاء، يشاء من الذي يشاء؟ الشخص. فأنا إذا أردت الهداية فالله لا يقف عقبة في طريقي، بل إنه يهديني، يهدي من يشاء الهداية. إذن فمن يأتي بهذه الآية ويقول يهدي من يشاء، هذه لها معنيان، يختار هو معنى ويترك المعنى الآخر، وهذا هو الخطأ في فهم الآية.
أولا إن لم يكن حرية لا يوجد حساب. دي القاعدة الأولانية اللي نشتغل عليها. الإنسان أصلا مسير في أمرين. الأمر الأول هو ولدته من والدين ثم ولدته في وطن. فأنا ليس لي أبدا بأي حال من الأحوال اختيار لأمي وأبويا، ولا اختياري للوطن اللي أنا عايش فيه. دي أنا مسير فيهم 100%. لكن على الرغم أن ربنا مسيرني فيهم، لكن العجيب جدا أن حط حب فيه، حب غريب جدا للي بيولدوني. يعني أنا بحبهم قوي وهم بيحبوني جدا جدا، وأنا بحب وطني ووطني بيحبني قوي. ده اعتقادي الشخصي. فدول الاثنين. أما حياة الإنسان فربنا حط لي قوانين، وحط لي عقل، وحط لي إرادة، وبناء على القوانين اللي هي وصايا والعقل والإرادة سأحاسب.
This is a very fundamental point with regard to theologians, both within Judaism and within Islam. Theologians had disagreed over the period of centuries with regard to the nature of divine providence. Does God exercise direct guardianship over everything in creation? Does he determine exactly what is going to happen in advance? And that's both in the natural order as well as in terms of human actions. If you take the extreme position which says that God controls every blade of grass, controls every human act, then you end with a position in which there is really no free will. If you accept a notion of freedom of the will at the same time, you then recognize that God does not control human action. He voluntarily allows man to be an autonomous moral creature and to use his own will in determining his action. And there is the concomitant notion, which is accepted by many philosophers, that God, at least insofar as the animal kingdom is concerned, insofar as other aspects of the natural order are concerned, that he created the laws of nature, and those govern the way the world is going to develop, etc., unless there is a direct act of divine intervention. That direct act of divine intervention is what we call a miracle.
Please, son, go and do your homework.
No, Dad, I won't leave the game until it's over.
You always say this, and I never see you finish any of your homework. I can tell you will fail.
His father expected his failure before it happened. Does this mean that the child did not choose to fail? Or at least he was not the cause of his failure? Does this mean the father's prediction led his son to get poor grades? Does God's knowing of our deeds long before it happens hinder our free will or freedom of choice?
فالله سبحانه وتعالى كتب علينا ترجمة ما سيكون، ولأنه علام الغيوب فإنه يعلم غدا ماذا سأفعل، ويعلم ماذا سيفعل من يأتي بعدنا ب100 سنة، وكتب هذا. فهذا المكتوب لا يؤثر في اختياري، بل إنه هذا المكتوب يترجم اختياري. ولأن الله ليس عنده زمن، بل كل الدنيا عنده أمامه هكذا. فما سيكون بعد 1000 سنة هو أمامه الآن، وما كان قبل 1,000,000 سنة هو أمامه الآن. فليس عنده زمن، لا يحده زمان ولا مكان، وليس هو متشخص في شخص، وليس هو في حالة معينة تمنعه أو تمنع شيئا عنه، فإنه عليم بذات الصدور، علام للغيوب سبحانه وتعالى.
Okay, if you are on a ship, okay, the ship goes in a certain direction. Whatever it is, let's say goes that direction. On the ship, you can go any direction you want. You can go this direction too. But it won't change your going this way. That's the story about God's will and your will. Yeah, God's will makes the ship goes this way, or is the ship going this way. Your will can say, on the ship, I can go this way and that way, and even go against the direction. It's according to your will. Yeah, but that won't change the will of the of the captain of the ship. Now, you must ask yourself rather, why do you have that choice? Why can you go any direction on the ship, even against the direction of the ship? Why? Because not everybody or every being has that choice. Human beings supposedly have this choice. But for what reason? Why do you have a will? Why can you even go against God? God, allows you to go against Him. That's another little remark about the atheists. You say you are an atheist type. You think there's somebody who allows you to be an atheist? Maybe God allows you to be an atheist. Yeah, possible. For a certain reason. Why? Because we are saying that human beings are وَكَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ لَقَدْ قَرَمْنَا. We honored them. What is the honor of a human being? The honor of the human being is that you don't have to go with the ship like that and you have no other choice. Your honor is that you have that choice, that is to say, you have a will through which you can decide to follow and go in the same direction as the ship.
Not only adults have the freedom of choice, children also choose in their own special way.
These children are playing a game called My Luck. Its main idea basically relies on chances. It goes as follows. Each child is given cards which, when put in a certain order, should form his name. Abdul Munem, for instance, has the letters A, B, D, E, L, M, O, N, E, I, and M. Instead of putting them in the correct order, they all agree together to draw the letters haphazardly. The first one who succeeds in forming his name by accident is going to be the winner, or in other words, the king, as they are going to call him. This is the first toss. Second toss? Toss number 101? There is no sign of hope on their faces. The children get bored one after the other. Children have chosen not to continue their game. They've chosen to believe that there is no chance the letters would form their names by chance.
How about you? When you look at the complex world, what are you going to believe?
Every step you take is a step away from where you used to be. By coming to watch this documentary, you made a choice to learn more about belief. We hope that what you have watched today has touched both your heart and mind. And if not, we hope that through experiencing other people's beliefs, your mind and eyes have enjoyed watching.
Do you believe this world came out of the blue? Or is it really meant for you? Do you believe that you're going nowhere? Or you have choices to declare? Do you believe the world is unfair? Or is there enough love and enough care for you to share everywhere? as your heart